Oh, yes, indeedy, quite literally, Doody. This is going to be a lovely conversation in the good listening to Your Life and Times with me, Chris Grimes, clearing, because I'm delighted to have here a lovely man who I've long since adored for many years. We're in instant wit together. I'm also slightly jealous of him because he looks more like Stan Laurel than I do. And indeed, he's played Stan Laurel in a film, which I haven't. But anyway, please welcome to the wonderful space. This is where it is the clearing, where all good questions come to get asked, I think you'll find, and all good stories come to get told. And we're going to find out who is this very handsome dude of a geezer that is Mr. Nik Howden, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome aboard. How are you, Nik? How's morale? What's your story of the day, please?
Thank you, Chris. I'm well and good. And what have I been doing so far? Painting. I've been painting. Well, to be fair, I haven't actually. Oh no, I did do some painting of the gas meter box on the outside of the house. That is now primed and will be ready to paint. I've also been filling holes in the render.
Lovely, and I like the fact you've got no short-term memory in the sense you can't remember whether you were painting or not, and then you remembered your gas box. I like that. Also, when I rang you up last week, when you said, are you going to tell me what we're talking about? You said, oh, me and Paula, that's your good lady. You said, I'm up to my elbows, can't really talk at the moment, in fungicide, you said.
Yes, fungicidal wash.
Of course.
Which I hasten to add is also for the external of the house rather than me. And
yes, thanks for clarifying.
Yes, but that's I'm pleased to say done and rinsed, and yeah, and now we're cracking.
And you and Paul have both had a good old wash down, because obviously it sounds slightly toxic. Fungicidal. What did you call it? Fungicidal wash.
Fungicidal wash. Yes.
It's not a shower gel, is it? That's very much for the outside of the house.
Yes. It's not to be taken internally, certainly.
Thank you. That's a good disclaimer for the UK health radio space. Don't try this at home internally. Yeah. Quite right. Yeah. So, Nik, you're extremely welcome. As I say, we do have Instant Wit. We've been on stage together. This is obviously the Comedy Improvisation company that me and Stephanie Weston both co-run together. And when did you join? Can you remember? I was trying to do my maths.
Oh, bloody hell. No, I generally say about 10 years, but I don't know.
I'm not trying to age us both, but it's been a deliciously long time because, you know, you are a gift on stage and you two are in that lovely universe of yes and. So I thoroughly enjoy talking to you whenever I do. So it's a
Thanks.
and tush.
Make me blush.
Yes. And when was the Stan Laurel film? You'll hopefully remember that. That's such
that was 2006. 2006 on BBC4. Yes.
And tell us the story of that, because that must have been such a lovely thing to have done.
So the agent I had at the time, I would contact every week or every 2 weeks to find out what I've been put forward for. And they'd send me the list. And on that list was this film that they put me forward for, which I was obviously very keen to do, he being an hero of mine. And so I sent photographs of me looking even more like Stan Laurel, and just really pushed to try and get seen. And I got seen. It was the last afternoon they were seeing people. And the first I heard about whether or not I'd got the job was when their wardrobe department rang me for my measurements on the train home, which was obviously very exciting. And yeah, that's how the job came about.
Lovely.
I could wax lyrical with lots more detail, but I'm very conscious that we have but 45 minutes.
Yes.
So I'll spare you that.
So bless you, but we'll encourage you to go hard on your own URLs, sir, at the end. So we will find out where we can find out more about you, and by all means, crank your handle on that particular film as well, because it was a delicious and delightful performance that you turned in as Stan Laurel, who is my hero too. Sure, it's all to play for. We've got a clearing, we've got a tree, we've got some alchemy, some gold, we've got some apples within the tree, I forgot to mention. There's a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, and then there's a cake. Woohoo! It's all to play for. Also, you have a lovely story in that you're also, apart from being a very versatile, great DIY aficionado, you're also a Funerial Celebrant, which is how you've also evolved over time as well. So you've got a very interesting story to tell, sir.
That is true. That is very true, yeah.
Yes, I'm telling you a story for you at the moment, so it's very important I get you
now.
to
Do you want me to talk about it now?
No, I'm going to now ask you, Nik Howden, What is a
Oh, you see, now
clearing?
we had.
Oh, can you hear me? This is the comedy of Zoom. Can you hear me?
I can. This is the comedy of Zoom. I can. There was a bit of a delay, which is when we ended up talking over each other. Hopefully, that will be the first and last time within the next 45 minutes.
Because it's all about listening, dear. That's the
Yes,
idea.
dear. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
2 ears, 1 gob. So let's get you cracking. Nik Howden, actor, Funerial Celebrant, all-round versatility pants, and man who's good at DIY. What is a clearing like for you, literally or metaphorically? Where do you get clutter-free? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think?
So this was tricky to address this. When you told me what when you gave me the instruction as to how to prepare for this, you said don't overthink it, which inevitably, being a thinker as opposed to feeler, controller, or entertainer, I did.
Bless you. So you've overthought your clearing.
I've overthought my clearing, and not for the first time, but I can confidently, or fairly confidently, say that where I think is in the car when I'm driving. Obviously with nobody else in it, but that's tends to be when I'm able to kind of continue a train of thought, and really explore my thoughts. That and perhaps walking the dog, but there tends to be more that interferes, that kind of clouds that when I'm walking the dog.
I think you're accessing your inner Suggs and madness. I like driving in my car. You're not quite a Jaguar. What are we driving at the moment, Mr. Nik?
You see, now I thought you might ask me that question, and while I was thinking about the answer to this, I was going to say it's not quite a Jaguar. There's a wavelength which is not news, I suppose. The car. So my wife's company car is a Golf TSI, which is tidy but a bit gutless, if I'm honest.
Bit gutless, did you say?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Lacks oomph.
Yeah, no offence to the VW aficionados out there. Not that we're here to. I don't mind if you.
No, well, it's all eco-friendly, and eco-friendly cars, in my very limited experience, lack a bit of oomph.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
So do you like your cars with a bit of cojones? You like some oomph, as you're talking about?
I enjoy, going at speed when there's an opportunity and when it's safe to do so.
And if you've got a big dog, that's the other thing, is that's a type of dog that pulls you out for a walk, therefore you go at speed? Or what type of dog are we driving?
We're driving a lurcher, which for anybody who doesn't know is pretty much anything crossed with a whippet or greyhound. And she is a rescue. She's called Pip. We got her when she was 2 or 3, and we think she's probably a cross between a greyhound, a staffy, and a border collie.
That was a complicated night out on the tiles by the sound of it.
Indeed, but the pictures are amazing.
Please do share with our listenership and viewership a picture of your lovely pooch as well.
That wasn't the pictures I was referring to, but yes.
You can do that post-program or now.
Yeah, well, I'll do it post-program. Conscious of time, ever conscious of time, Christopher.
Yes, on a podcast, it's never good to hold a photograph up to the camera, although you can. Brilliant.
Right. Well, I'm not going to, so there.
No. Well...
yes, but it's a winning combination of stamina of a collie, strength of a staffy, and speed of a greyhound.
Is that you we're talking about now, or this is still the dog?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm enjoying riffing. You'll see what I'm doing there. Lovely. So in your clearing then, we're in your car. And so you can choose whereabouts your car is, because I'm going to arrive with a tree in your clearing quite soon, which is going to be quite comical because I've got to get a tree, a bit waiting for Godot-esque. I've got to get this big tree sort of rammed in through your side door so I can sit next to you with a tree to shake it.
Yeah. Well, let's... ideally, the car should be in motion. I don't just go and park up and go,
Okay.
Where
are you taking me?
That sort of antics is for people who have disposable time, leisure time,
Yes.
Which is something I'm somewhat lacking, really. So where are we going?
Time you make up for in just innate awesomeness.
Please, I'm blushing again, really.
Yeah, so anyway, where are we going to in your car then?
Where are we going? Let's go. Let's go for a good. I tell you what, a good road is the road from Cirencester to Oxford, the A40. That's a nice road.
Oh, so I like that. We're being specific. Here we are on the A. We're banging up or clanging up the A40.
Yeah.
I've now got into your car with
Wh-
an oversized shrubbery in the form of a tree.
yes, which is, health and safety experts out there would obviously um, be clenching, shall we say, at the prospect of excess foliage in the car, but we're getting by.
And obviously, you're a good multitasker because I'm now going to ask you some quite deep seismic questions whilst you're thundering along the A40. So this is where we're now going to shake your tree, Nik Howden, to
Indicate. Why can't you indicate? Sorry.
Oh, I like that. You're in your car. I get that. Please do bring in lots of other traffic hazards as they turn up. And slow down, don't forget. Stop! And I'm kidding. Anyway, so now, this is where we're going to shake your apples in the form of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, where you've had 5 minutes to think, but not overthink. I think you'll find, Nik Howden. 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. Oh, squirrels! Just to be clear, you didn't just hit one. And then 1 quirky or unusual fact about you, Nik Howden, we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. So you don't have to shake them all in a wanna. It's up to you to crunch those apples whilst you're driving along as you see fit. Over to you.
Okay, so what has formed me? What first sprung to mind was my dad, and then my parents, which perhaps is, not having. I made a point of not listening to any of your previous Life and Times with Grimes / good listening to's. So I don't know if anyone else has said that, but I would imagine a few have. But that's what first sprang to mind. I'm a lot like my dad in mannerism and other aspects as well, and also with the benefit of having both my parents present, getting to sort of have or observe my mum's perspective on my dad. I'm also aware of the aspects of my dad's character that I'd rather not incorporate myself. So it really is I'm going to say parents as my first apple, if that's allowed. I know there's 2 of them, but
and beautifully put. I love that, the fact that you've acknowledged we are like our fathers. In everyone hears that as an adage, but you've also noticed the quirks or the foibles within, the cracks, shall we say, to your father that you'd rather not have yourself. Do you want to be specific about the cracks we don't like? I mean, like in my life, it's patience is a virtue Daddy doesn't have is a sort of mantra in our house.
I see. I can't remember quite the word for it. He is sort of although he's only, how old is he? He's just gone 70, I think. No, 75. In fact, he's 75. All my days. What's the date? 2 weeks. He's 75. But he's very almost got a foot in the generation previous in terms of being quite xenophobic and yeah. But it's a real odd contradiction. There are many contradictions to his character in terms of.
You're not saying you're xenophobic. You're saying that's something you definitely don't want to be in pursuance of. I'm assuming.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because I don't want listenership to misconstrue that you have the same quirks and similarities you'd rather not have. Because in my experience of you, you are, a thoroughly all-round decent human being. So xenophobia would not be an icon I would attach to you.
No, thank you. I'm relieved to hear that. Yes, he's it is the mix of liberal attitude and old school kind of prejudices are, as I say, quite a contradiction.
Yes.
Not that that's something I think I'd ever slip into, but it's more the. I couldn't be specific really off the top of my head. Just certain kind of inclination to jump to conclusions or basically to allow myself to get angry. To lose my rag, as my dad would say.
Yes. And is losing your rag something you do A lot, a bit,
Wait,
not much.
losing my rag?
Yeah.
Yes, it has been known.
Okay.
Like not sort of red mist thing, you
Yeah.
know, like not properly losing my temper, but allowing myself to raise my voice in frustration
Shall we say?
is not an alien thing.
Nicely put. And self-awareness is the holy grail. So I like the fact that you too are aware that you are merely human with certain foibles present.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. But also the other kind of thing that I have to thank my mum for. My dad worked away a lot, and so she was quite key in my upbringing, and she basically trusted me to go and do stuff, and made me very independent and quite self-sufficient from
Nice.
an early age. I made my own sandwiches and walked myself to school when I was 6.
Wow.
And we lived just on the outskirts of the village, that the school that I went to which I went. Um,
Thank you for
and
the graphic piece. I love that.
yeah, so but you know this was 40 years ago, Chris. A
Yeah,
bit
I
more
get
than
that.
so it was all right to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Them's was the old days. You're probably walking through snow in your bare feet and all that stuff as well.
Oh yeah. And I was, you know, if I found a bit of grit to munch on my way, I was happy.
Like that. Luxury.
Yes,
Bloody
yeah,
luxury.
bloody
Right.
luxury.
So we've got your mum and dad as a combined apple. Love that. What was your dad's line of work? Just while I've got you riffing on your dad being your first.
He did many things. He was a long distance truck driver for the best part of my early years, and then he sacked it off because he wasn't seeing his kids grow up, and so he tried many things. Was unemployed for quite a long time, and was like getting old bikes, stripping them down, and then just putting different bikes together to make a new bike and stuff like that to turn a buck. And then he stumbled into being a chippy on a building site, and from that he progressed to being a design manager on site, like a
Okay.
project manager on site, and yeah, did very well basically
Yeah.
for a man who had
And you
very
you
simple
have you have
education.
DIY in your own sort of DNA. Then I'm hearing because I have perceived that you are very handy, shall we say, vis-a-vis a cheeky bit of DIY.
Yes, yes. So, indeed, it's kind of in my DNA, I suppose, and having grown up with my dad doing stuff around the house, it's given me confidence to tackle things. Whether or not that's misplaced, you'll have to ask my wife.
I'll have her on next, and I am a DIY turnip, so I have nothing but respect for you in that regard. Okay,
Go
next,
for it.
next Apple Crunch. So, what else has shaped you?
A teacher at my primary school called Mr. Sullivan. He basically, this was like my second, second or third year juniors, so I still had 1 or 2 years left of primary school, and he,
So it sounds like year in new money, years 4 or 5 at junior school.
yes, that'd be about right. Yeah. He saw that I was bright, and so he arranged for me to go to one afternoon a week. I'd go to Newton Abbot to this extra thing, and I didn't really know what it was until when I got there. There's this little plaque on the outside of the building saying "School for Gifted Children." I was like,
Wow.
oh, I say. So I went and did this thing with about 12 other kids who I'd never met before, and then he coached me to pass my entrance exam for Exeter School, which, so it would have been a bit later in primary school actually, but anyway, that's a minor detail.
Mr. Sullivan, you said, didn't you?
Mr. Sullivan, Mr. John Sullivan, no, not that one. And
Which one you don't mean, actually. Sorry, but that's ignorance on my part. When you say
I think in my head I've got the writer of Only Fools and Horses, but
thank you for I'm
possibly
glad I asked.
I might be
And
wrong.
is your Mr. Sullivan still out there?
I don't know. I don't know. I have kind of a couple of times sort of wondered if he dipped into Facebook or something like that, but unfortunately my efforts have been no more strenuous than that. To
How
seek him
wonderful
out.
that he saw the potential in you, knew that you didn't have like a 40-watt bulb in there, and he knew that you had potential.
Yeah, yeah. And it's because I think it was his idea for me to go to Exeter School, which is a public school, and as I say, he coached me to pass the exam, and that then started a whole other path of stuff, which has been the foundation of the rest of my life.
Lovely. And I like the fact that, yes, it's funny how some people in our lives can say things or do things that we'll never forget, and they're incredibly formative because it crosses a threshold from one way of being to another. So I love that. You were nudged along to a school in Newton Abbot, you said, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, that afternoon, one afternoon a week in Newton Abbot.
Are you still friends with the cohort that you met on those fateful afternoons?
Not at all. I can remember the name of one of them because he shared my surname, which was unusual. Nik Howden. But beyond that, I remember nothing. But then that's not unusual. That's no slight on the people who were there, because I don't remember very much anyway, generally. But yes, so because of going to that school, I had opportunities like auditioning for National Youth Music Theatre when I was 13 or 14, which was an amazing experience, and it instilled a certain confidence to tackle things which wouldn't necessarily have been absent from going to a different school, but has definitely been consistent with the rest of the people that I went to school with. But also, I had the advantage of going to a state primary school and then a public school, which has meant that I feel comfortable in the company of all sorts of different classes, in inverted commas, of people.
Love that. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Still shaking your apples?
Yes. Yes. So something else that was formative for me was my mum's Dansette record player, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is an old kind of late 60s record player with a single speaker at the front and a turntable behind the speaker, and it sits on 4 spindly legs. And the reason that was formative is that my earliest memory of using that, of having that in my bedroom, was when I was about 6 or 7, playing Disney LPs in my bedroom, pretending I was doing a radio show.
Oh, I love that, because to this day you are now doing a radio show. It's come full circle because it's Wooten Radio, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Well,
Right.
it's actually Edge Radio, just to be the pedant. But yes, and that hadn't occurred to me till I was forced to consider these apples that I'd been doing.
And what's the brand of the record player again? Because it's a very iconic.
Yes, it's called a Dansette.
Love that.
Dansette record player, yeah. And so while that's my earliest memory, a few years later, I don't know why, but was then entrusted with the entire vinyl collection of my parents, which I meticulously worked my way through. I think I was about 8 years old by this point, 8 or 9. And my mum had nearly every 7-inch that the Beatles released.
Oh, wow.
And several Beatles albums, an album by Donovan, a couple of Jasper Carrot LPs, which is very good. Benny Hill and his Ernie 7-inch single,
Wow.
driving the fastest milk cart in the West. And my dad had various blues albums and stuff.
And are they still in your possession, this wonderful eclectic mix of vinyls?
I think only the Donovan. The Donovan album was like in a box, and came with each song had its own lyric sheet with artwork and stuff. And yes, it was A Gift from a Flower to a Garden is the name of the album. But also, what's his name? Al Stewart album, which I listened to. I loved it. Yeah. So
Wow.
so I think that it's my hunch that having that sort of for want of a better phrase, musical foundation
Yes.
has really informed my ability to grasp melodies and harmonies and so on.
Yes.
And
I
really,
love that. And sorry to interrupt you. I love the
yeah.
fact that you're to this day, and I think, did it get going during the pandemic? You're being a DJ on Edge Radio.
Yes, yeah, it came out of the pandemic. We did have a DJ night once a month in a local pub. That wasn't able to happen. The guy who organised that had been thinking about a local radio station for a while, and then lockdown kind of nudged the issue.
And you have, and please say about this at the end, but you have a regular Thursday show, don't you?
That's right. It's called the Deli Hour, but I'll say about it at the end.
So sorry if I occasionally get a lick on with the structure, but we're still in your tree, in your foliage, in your canopy, shaking your apples.
Yeah, and so my fourth apple of the four is my trip travelling, my journey travelling. I went travelling for a year and a half when I was 21, and basically the formative thing, I suppose, really was the notion that like attracts like, and the people you meet when you're in that sort of situation tend to be a reflection of yourself.
Yes.
And on that basis, it really kind of affirmed what I already kind of, how I already perceived myself to be. And I was greatly reassured by that. And yeah, and I think I'm all right, basically.
You are. And have you heard that lovely quote, which is running right alongside what you've just described, which is your vibe attracts your tribe?
No, I haven't, but I like that.
And there's the lovely thing about reciprocity in life. What you give out, you'll get back. So the fact that you radiate towards your own tribe and you get affirmed back who you thought you are is a lovely thing about connecting to our purpose and who we truly are. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, so those are the things that I think have been key in forming the man you see before you.
Lovely shapeage. Now we're going for inspirage. So 3 things that inspire you. And if there's any overlap, don't worry, because it's lovely. You're giving me, we're coming on to alchemy and gold later, and you're giving me that by the bucket load already. So 3 things that have shaped you, Nik Howden.
No, inspired me.
Oh, thank you so much.
So I found this very difficult, and so took the term inspire quite loosely and stretched it to kind of what motivates me.
Lovely.
And inevitably, I mentioned this to my wife, and she was like, "Well, hello," and she's absolutely on the money in terms of being a great motivator, which is a very, very diplomatic way of describing my wife's influence on my life.
There's a little bit of reading between the lines there. Just tell me a bit more.
Well, on my more negative days, I might perhaps change the label to nagging.
I see. So your wife is a motivator, is what you're saying. Is an influence on your life is Paula, giving it large in whichever ear she's leaning into. Is that what you mean? Or
yes. That's what I mean. But over the years, she's really found a way to kind of temper that nagging into more motivating as opposed to nagging. And by the way,
that is a really lovely compliment, actually, to Paula. Thank you. I hear that.
Yeah, and in terms of, so we've alluded to my DIY antics, and I try and share the decision making in terms of like how something's going to look or how something's going to be finished and this kind of thing. And she says, well, what do you think? And I say, well, I'd like to do it like this, but if someone's paying me to do it, I probably have to do it like this. And she was like, well, there you go then. And yeah, she's just gently nudging me to get stuff done. It's quite a big project that we've undertaken currently. And
so she's getting you to gold plate it as if you're being paid to do it. I like that. She's really got her eye on the prize of it being better than just a bod's job. Bob.
Indeed.
Yes.
But but as I say, she's mastering the kind of diplomatic approach rather than putting a strain on the relationship.
Nicely put. Life is complicated. I get that.
Yeah, for sure. But I was stretched that in terms of embodying the apple to being family in general.
Love that.
Um, it's where I not responsible for anybody else and just looking after myself. I will be content to earn just enough to get by and to do just enough. Obviously, I have ambition
Of course you do,
and
dear.
aspire to things, but money's not the motivator for me, is what I suppose alluding to.
Yes.
It's more the people that that I care about. Uh, that's what gives me the oomph to get up and do, really.
Yeah.
Um,
Lovely.
yeah, and what, as I say, I have ambition. I aspire to a blossoming and fruitful career. But what's occurred to me in considering these questions is that um, making sure that your homestead is happy and comfortable is something that's very important to
Yes.
me. More important than the burgeoning career and that kind of thing. I mean, obviously, what one could, in theory, fund or provide for the other, but ultimately, and lockdown kind of validated this. If I'd been off and trying to do stuff to to try and earn the buck and so on, then perhaps lockdown wouldn't have been such a happy thing that it was. Well, to begin with, anyway, inevitably over time,
Yes.
it all wore a bit thin for all of us. But
I hear you. And also, you're an actor at your purpose cause as well. And so I know that you've had your own pressures on, the world is shut down for the world of acting, which is, and how we've all lent in and adapted and been flexible is an intriguing thing of itself.
yes, yeah, faux show,
Faux, I like that. Faux show.
faux
So
show.
love that. So any more jiggles on the old inspiring?
Uh, yeah, so I had to think more and then drilled down into the idea that basically I'm just in pursuit of happiness.
Oh, I
I,
love that.
I decided, like people would ask me when I was a teenager, what do you want to be when you grow up and all that sort of thing, and I was like, ultimately I would just like to be happy, and I'm just like in pursuit of happiness. Um,
Which is a
and
sage-like endeavour. And do you remember, obviously, you were at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. I was too. We both had the gift of being trained by Rudy Shelley. And if you remember, oh,
I,
you
I,
weren't.
I know he was gone by the time I got
Ah,
there.
because
Yeah,
well, just to reflect back, he used to say ducky because all actors are ducky, obviously. But it was about the human condition is how we go about to make ourselves happy, and we all know that people in our world are good, bad, or indifferent at that endeavour. And so the pursuit of happiness is a really elixir fueled thing. So I commend you for that, and I relate very strongly to that.
and I heard a phrase or read a phrase the other day, just a couple of days ago, which said that happiness is a lifestyle, not a destination.
Oh, oh, and happiness is a cigar called Hamlet. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Dum, 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 dum. Yes. 45 minutes. I haven't got time for all that.
No, no, but lovely, lovely riffage on the theme tune there. Love that. Now I think we're on to two things that never fail to, squirrels, grab your attention. Remember, we're still driving down the A40. It's very exciting.
Yes. Yeah. So there, this, yeah, generally beauty. Beauty catches my eye.
Are you talking about me there or more generically?
Well, obviously, anytime you walk in a room, sir, you're like this ball of beautiful energy that one can't help but go, what the?
That's more the truth. What the? Yes.
um, uh, but but yeah, if I'm out walking the dog, and I see a beautiful flower,
Oh,
yeah, my eyes drawn to it. A beautiful view, a beautiful vista. We're driving a beautiful car. If sexy looking car. There's, there's a walk that I do every week or every other week or something like that. And this one day, I was walking up this quite a steep hill, and it's in some woods, and there's this barbed wire fence, quite an old barbed wire fence, and the barbed wires are all a bit slack and twisted and rusty and so on. And then one day, there was, just growing up in front of it, there was a really deep red tulip, all by itself, having no business to be there whatsoever. And I just thought that was a lovely image.
Yes. And by the way, in your pursuit of happiness, there is that lovely thing about nature, as in happiness, boff, it's right there. It can creep up on you. There is happiness in the form of a red tulip that is surviving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love the rusty barbed wire and the red tulip. I commend you for your storytelling acumen. I love that.
Yeah, so things like that, but also beautiful people, you know. Many years ago, I was with a young lady, and we'd be driving along, and she periodically punched me on the arm. And I'm like, what are you doing? She said, stop. Because a head-turning lady would inevitably turn my head. And she was on it. She knew straight away. Bam! Stop it.
On it like a car bonnet.
Indeed. So yeah, that's kind of.
But it's like, what's lovely about you. That's not a wondering eye. That's just a wondering aesthetic appreciation.
Yeah. And I like. Yes, I tried to explain that at the time, but it
wasn't having none of it.
Wasn't bought. No. But.
So do you still have a bruised arm in your current life?
No, Paul has given up.
Particularly if it's been your injection arm, sort of post-COVID dab and that sort of thing.
Indeed.
Oh, do you mind? That's well carried on. Lovely.
Yes. So
Yes.
beauty in all its forms, and the other thing that catches my eye, that never fails to catch my eye, is a TV. If a screen is on, I'm like drawn to it.
Yeah.
I don't love that. I really.
And it can be anything, just the flicker of the haunted fish tank of the TV thing that grabs you.
Basically, yeah. In particular, well, two things in particular I don't like about that is in a pub. You know, I don't go to a pub to watch a screen. This football's on, obs. But yeah, like I have to sit with my back to the screen, because otherwise, even though I'm talking and engaged in conversation with somebody, I'll still be drawn to it all the time. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And also at home, in my home environment, sat with family, watching telly, I can get sucked in, and people will talk to me, and I don't know that they've spoken to me.
Yes.
And that's.
If I may, what's really relatable is it was a black and white telly flickering in Uganda when I was about 7 years old, when Stan Laurel first flicked into my awareness. And that was a TV tubage. And that was the moment where I thought, oh, and that sort of changed my life, by the TV flicker. So I know that every now and again, something's going to change your life on that haunted fish tank, as I'm comically calling it.
Yes. Fair point. You know, I'm not saying TVs are bad. It's just my inclination to. I mean, it's kind of inevitable, because it is a big ball of energy in the corner of a room, and you know, any big ball of energy makes you go zoop. But yeah.
Yes, you should, I'm glad you never played a Teletubby, because you'd have a television in your own
sort of, my own navel.
In your own navel, and that'd be talk about navel gazing. That'd be extraordinary. Got to get a lick on, because we're coming up to about 5, 6, 7 minutes before the end. So now, one quirky or unusual fact about you, Nik Howden, actor, Funerial Celebrant, DJ. What is a quirky or unusual fact about you?
So I have an autoimmune condition, which means that occasionally, like as in once every 2 years or so, I get a thing in my eye called iritis or uveitis. Now, an autoimmune condition means that the antibodies in your blood sometimes start attacking your own cells, which sounds more dramatic than it is.
And it can be extremely dramatic in other instances, but you're talking about something idiosyncratic that happens to you, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes. And so the symptom, how I know it's going on, is like I've got something in my eye that's kind of gone to the back of my eye, because it basically is a little bit of inflammation on the surface of my eyeball. And they give me these drops which make my pupil dilate, which looks quite weird if you're looking close up, because obviously the other pupil, it remains the same. But the reason I thought it worth mentioning is because when people see me putting the drops in, they say, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I say, "Oh, I've got iritis." And they say, "Oh, what's that?" And I say, "It's where your left eye thinks it's the right eye." And they look at me like that. And then after varying bits of time, I say, "Oh, I'm only joking. It's this inflammation thing." But interestingly, people buy it initially.
Yes.
Your left eye thinks it's the right eye. Yeah, iritis. Oh. Yeah.
That is very quirky, and no one's ever said that particular quirky or unusual fact. Thank you. And how's the condition currently?
Fine, not bothering me at all. Thanks for asking.
And does it happen when you're run down, or is it just every couple of years? It's sort of a cycle that repeats.
It just seems to be every couple of years. It's only happened about 4 times, and I've not noticed a trigger as yet.
And they've told you it's a congenital thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've shaken your tree. Now we're staying in the clearing, moving away from the tree, and we're talking about alchemy and gold now. Woohoo! When you're at purpose and in flow, Nik Howden, what are you most happy doing?
This was really hard. Basically, conscious of time, I'll sum it up as I really enjoy singing. I do love singing. Haven't done enough singing. I like singing in front of people, you know. I've done it quite a lot, but still not enough. But the opportunity may well arise in the not too distant future, as I'm kind of part of a band locally. So there's that. I also
part of a band, or you're actually part of a band?
I'm actually part of a band.
Yeah.
And I have actually sung with the band, but
In
not in
natural
front of
sense
people.
of I've done.
Yes, because the second or third lockdown prevented that. It was on the cards, and then it couldn't happen. So, but it will in the fullness of time, which is great and exciting, and I love that. I also enjoy dancing to groovy music, and sometimes when, as you say, I'm in full flow. That's kind of a peak moment. Generally, if I'm a bit inebriated, so you know, had some supplement to my enjoyment.
Yes, bit of lubricant to the sense of enjoyment.
Indeed, but yeah, just I don't consider myself to be particularly good, but I enjoy getting in the groove.
Got some dancing pants, is what I'm hearing.
Indeed.
Get your groove.
But the other thing that I really, really enjoy is being at a festival. I like to be at a festival with a group of people, but there are times when you go off by yourself and you just have your own little adventure, and that's kind of peak as well for me. Have I time to give you an example?
Very quickly, we've got about 2 minutes, and I've got a couple more things to ask you to do. So you could leave that hanging there.
I'll leave it hanging there. Yeah.
I'm now going to award you with a cake, Nik Howden, for gracing us with your presence. The cherry on the cake.
Tea ready.
Bless you. The cherry on the cake is inspired by a bit of Shakespeare and all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, think you'll find. When all is said and done, how would you most like Nik Howden to be remembered?
Oh. As someone who put a smile on people's faces. That's it. Through whatever means, whether it be making them laugh, making them feel good, doing something so they didn't have to, whatever. That's all.
Love that.
That's it.
Finally, where can we find out more about you on the internet? Just bish bash bosh your URLs.
So, as a funeral celebrant, you can go to my website, which is www.localfuneralcelebrant.com. where you'll find my contact details and a few testimonials, if you'll pardon the expression, from people what I've done funerals, or helped funerals with.
And if you've had some testimonials from...
I am much more eloquent when it comes to speaking.
No, you're wonderful. And I love the fact you've got testimonials from beyond the grave as well. I love that.
Indeed. And we mentioned the radio show, which is on edge.radio. That's it, www.edge.radio, nothing after that. I'm on every Thursday at 7 o'clock, and past shows can be listened to again on mixcloud.com. Just go to mixcloud.com and search for Deli Hour, D-E-L-I Hour, Deli as in delicatessen, but instead of fancy things for your mouth, it's fancy things for your ears. And the tagline for the music choice is anything that makes your shoulders drop and your head nod. That's what I play, basically.
Nik Howden, it's been an absolute joy having you here in the Your Life and Times with me, Chris Grimes, good listening to Clearing. This is the UK Health Radio version, which also will be pulled into the podcast space, hosted on Buzzsprout as well. But this is UK Health Radio, the Feel Good Radio. You've been listening to me and Nik Howden. He's put his finger up. He's got one more thing to say.
One last thing to say. You asked me for a quote.
Yes, please.
And it is, you just have to believe. You just have to believe. That's kind of what gives me the sucker. That's what you said. Yeah.
You just have to believe, and you just have to believe. This has been the wonderful presence and delight and joy, sincerely. And I do love being on stage with you, Nik Howden, in our Instant Wit capacity as well. Thank you very much indeed. And I'll invite you to say good night until next week, until next time, to your good health. And
thank you, G, and good night, everyone. Sleep well.